Hello. Republica Berlin. What is this place? This is cool. Damn, this is amazing. My name is Michael, and I've been asked to speak to you about a couple of things today. And the first of them is bicycle urbanism, the hows and the whys of putting the bicycle back as transport in our cities. And I do a lot of different things. All of them revolve around cities. And I like to point out that I'm going to talk about bikes for a while, but I like to also say that I am not a cyclist, okay? I don't identify as a cyclist. I don't have any spandex. I don't have those gloves with no fingers. I don't have the helmet and the racing bike. I am just a regular urban citizen who uses a bike to get around my city and others. I'm from Copenhagen, right? So this is my bike. It's waiting for me at Copenhagen Airport when I get home. I do believe in the bicycle as a powerful symbol for all the things we should be doing in our cities and for fighting climate change. I also believe that the bicycle is the most important tool in our urban toolboxes for forcing the urban change that we so desperately need. But just so we're straight, I'm just a guy on a bike, right? I do a lot of different things, all of it, like I said, working with cities, improving the transport, improving the quality of life. I've worked in over 100 cities around the world, doing what I can to make things better. I also have a TV series called The Life-Sized City, and this is the age of urbanism. So many amazing things are happening all around the world. It's a super fascinating time to be living in cities. Incredibly optimistic. This is, I curate all the stuff that's happening, all the citizens who are taking back their urban space, politicians, there's still a few of them who actually do some good things, and we curate it into one series. So this is in 13 countries. It's coming to the German language countries on the Austrian channel Servus, Red Bull channel. Who knew they had a channel? But anyway, Servus in June. I got some books. One of them I'm going to be signing afterwards. This one is sort of everything that I've been thinking about and philosophizing about and all my work experience in cities around the world over the past 10 or 12 years. I know who's going to read this book. It's like my colleagues, planners, engineers, people who want urban change, citizens riding bikes. Those kind of people. That's great. I'm also not stupid. I know that most people in the world will never read this book. So, especially the whiners, right? The skeptics, the people, the NIMBYs, as we call it in English. Great idea with a bike lane, just NIMBY, not in my backyard, right? So I know that they're never going to read this book. So I wrote one for them. It's called A Short Introduction to Bicycle Urbanism for People Who Don't Give a Fuck. Basically, there's the German. I really got to try. Vermenschende einen Scheiß darauf geben. That sounds so sexy in German. God. Anyway, this is a short, fun read. Lots of stuff to learn in it. And then when we're done, we give it to the person who's going to hate it the most. We slip it in their, on their desk at work. Or we put it in their Christmas stocking. So same, but different. But let's talk about democracy, urban democracy, very important to me. And streets, I love streets. You give me 2 glasses of wine and I'll be talking for hours about the romantic poetry of our streets and our cities. They are the skeletal structure of our city organism. They're the veins that pump the lifeblood out to all corners of the urban landscape. Streets are beautiful. 7,000 years, we've been living in cities together, give or take. And for 7,000 years, the streets were beautiful. Sure, you could die of tuberculosis maybe back in the day in a European city, but the streets were the most democratic space in the history of our cities. We did everything in the streets. We transported ourselves. We bought and sold our goods. We talked to our neighbors. We started revolutions. We flirted. We found our partners. Our children played in the streets. Man, they were extensions of our homes. They were our living rooms. Beautiful, beautiful streets. And then we did this. We invented the automobile, and that's one thing. But then we started to try and push as many of them as possible into our cities. And we've been trying this for 100 years, and it's time to admit it doesn't work. Cars and cities were never meant to tango together. Change in perception. When we started putting cars into our cities, things changed. Democratic space for 7,000 years. This is my space. And then cars came along, and engineers were handed the job of trying to figure out how to make them work in cities and figure out the traffic safety problem. So almost overnight, the perception of streets, democratic space, it changed. All of a sudden, streets were put in a different box with public utilities, water supply, electricity, sewers, and streets. Puzzles to be solved with mathematical equations. Massive change in perception. And the automobile industry, they got their game on back in the day, 100 years ago. They realized that they had to tackle this perception of streets as public space because they needed room to move these cars. And they, from the very beginning, it started with the anti-automobile age. They call it that in America. You drove a car in a city and you were stupid. Like, you were hated for driving a car in a city. So they had to tackle this with marketing, spin, name-calling, making fun of people who were crossing the street in the middle of the block. No, you got to go up to the corner now and wait for permission to cross the street. You don't do that anymore. But I did it for 7,000 years. It's not our problem. You got to go to the crosswalk now. It took them 20 years of this campaigning to change our perception, and we're still living with that in our cities today. The idea that streets, those are there for cars. Everybody else, get the hell out of the way. Not our problem. Massive change in perception. It's the greatest paradigm shift in the history of our cities. Nothing before, nothing since. Massive. But hey, this is a sign that we're moving to a different place. This is my favorite quote about urbanism. The fact is that cars no longer have a place in the big cities of our time. For a lot of people that we all know, that's some crazy talk right there. Like, who's saying that? It's the mayor of Paris for 12 years. He came to power and he said, I'm going to make Paris nicer. 30-kilometer-an-hour zones, 20,000 bike share bikes, slowing down the city, improving the air quality. The lady who took over from him, she's continuing the work. Incredible city. But when, he's not alone. There are mayors around the world who are saying things like this in the last 10 years. New York, Vancouver, Buenos Aires, you name it. When people like that say things like this, it's not crazy talk anymore. It's a sign that we are moving towards a new paradigm shift, one that I call back to the future, back to before the automobile came along and messed with our heads, back when we were rational and intelligent about city planning. We have to change the question. Many questions in our cities, but we're talking transport. This is the first one we change. For about 70 years, we asked one question of the traffic engineers. How many cars can we move down this street? That was it. And really what we meant was, how can we get more down there, please? Squeeze them in. 100 years of trying, nobody can figure it out. The only thing we've learned in 100 years of trying is that if you make more space for cars, more cars come. You widen a road, you widen a motorway, you're going to get more cars. You're back to where you were 6 months ago, 6 months or a year ago. It's the stupidest waste of money in the history of humans. Modern cities are changing the question. They're changing one word in this question. They're asking, how many people can we move down a street? We've invented cool stuff, right? Trams and buses and trains and bikes. How many people can we move down a street? You ask that question, you get whole new answers. It's amazing. This model I made in Photoshop, real quick, it literally has 10 times the capacity for moving people down a street than the model at the top that we just copy-pasted from the Americans in the 1950s without really thinking about it. So this is a short history of traffic engineering. For 7,000 years in our cities, we provided our primary transport forms with a fast A to B. We prioritized them. 1900 came along, and we had bikes and public transport. It was awesome. Still, we were rational and intelligent, prioritizing them with a fast A to B. 1920s, the car had shown up. Still rational. 1950s, you can see where it all went wrong. We copy-pasted this from the Americans, and we put all of our money on one horse. The car. We couldn't envision another future. It was only the car. And that's what we're living with in cities today. The car has been given the fast A to B. Everybody else, good luck with that. Try and figure out how to get around the city. Not our problem. This is a great graphic from Sweden, sort of what it feels like to live in a city with cars, to walk around or ride a bike. It's a canyon to cross. But this is the quickest traffic planning guide you'll ever see for planning a modern city. You prioritize the 3 transport forms on the left, and you make driving a car a pain in the ass. More difficult, more expensive, slow it down. This is the way to go. I work with transport psychology. So we know that these 3 transport forms on the left, bikes, walking, and public transport, we're intermodal. It's like we have no problem switching our forms of transport. If my bike is flat in the morning in Copenhagen, it's like, oh, God, right? I walk out and I grab a bus or a metro. and I go to work. I'm like 10 or 15 minutes late for work. I can never be later than that. It's really irritating, right? Sometimes you just want to be late for work, but no, I'm still there. Hi, everybody. We know that motorists are the last people to change their behavior, their mode of transport. Man, you got to drag them kicking and screaming out of their cars. We know that. So if we talk about carrots to encourage people to do things and sticks to force them to do things, we need the biggest stick in the history of cities if we're going to do the fourth line there. And all the campaigns for ride a bike, it's good for you, doesn't mean anything unless we're doing the fourth line. Why is this not a thing? If you're going to change questions, right, you get different answers. Like it's, why don't we have health warnings on all 5 sides of the car like we have on cigarette packs, right? It would make sense. Like, it's a funny idea, but I actually checked. All of the health warnings on cigarettes, well, most of the health warnings actually apply to automobiles. I have a doctor friend, and she checked it out. She's going, totally. This would be really intelligent European Union legislation, forcing everybody to do this, man. We need new questions. Change the question. We need a design intelligence in our cities. We need a new urban toolbox. The toolbox that cities have used for traffic planning for about 70 years with the traffic engineers had one tool in it, and it was a hammer. Cars. That was all we used. Now we need to have a whole bunch of different things, man, and we need design intelligence. We also need to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. We have to understand the mode of transport. If we're trying to get bikes into cities, we have to understand what gets people onto bikes. Infrastructure. Absolutely. Nothing happens without safe infrastructure. But we know this in Copenhagen. The city has asked the people every 2 years since 1996, hey, what's your main reason for riding a bike? Never changes. The majority says, I don't know, it's quick. It's the fastest way for me to go from A to B in my city. Then there's people who say, I get my 30 minutes a day of exercise with my basket and my music, and I feel good about that. That's great. Only 6% ride because it's inexpensive, and only 1% ride to save the planet for environmental reasons. They know that they're doing good things for the planet. They know that there's all these benefits, but this is the main reason for riding. So I call it A to Bism in English. It's what every human who ever lived and ever will live wants the most. We want to go fast from A to B. Humans are like rivers. We're always going to find the quickest route. We're always going to try and cut corners. We do it all day long, all of us. We navigate, right? If I have to get off this stage now and there's a bar over there, I really wish there was, but if there was a bar over there, I'm probably already mapping, okay, I came from there and I could maybe go up the side, or maybe I have to go along the front, or maybe I'll just jump off the stage, and we navigate all day long. So if you make the bicycle the fastest way, the default, and connect it with public transport, intermodal, half the battle's done. The rest is just a walk in the park. You make it competitive with travel times. That's the key. That's all we want. We're living with we have a lot of monkeys on our back from the 1950s and 60s mentality. I call this one arrogance of space. I'm at the Eiffel Tower looking down at the intersection with my kids, and I'm going, wait, that is a lot of asphalt. Look at the size of that intersection. And when you're standing at street level, you don't notice it. But when you come up and look down, you're going, oh. And then I go back to the office and put on like a filter, like square meters. What space is given to what transport forms. And then everything is revealed. This is like the Edward Snowden of urbanism. It's a whistleblower right there. Look at that red. Look at all the space given to cars. And then you count. There are only 23 humans in those cars using that space that they've been given. And there's, 38 pedestrians just on the pedestrian island waiting for permission from the traffic engineering gods to let them go see the damn Eiffel Tower. This is one of the busiest pedestrian intersections in the world, and you can see how incredibly arrogant it is. Even the cars take up all that space. So electric cars are still going to take up all that public space in the street. Luckily, we know what to do. We've known for 100 years of bicycle planning. This isn't rocket science. This took me 20 minutes with a pencil and paper, a few hours in Photoshop, and we applied best practice bicycle infrastructure to this intersection. And then I freestyled too. Pedestrians never do the 90-degree turn if they don't have to. We always cut that corner. So why are pedestrian crossings, why don't we actually design them like we normally use them, right? Simple. That's just a bit of extra paint. We can do that this weekend if we want. We need to use design. It's really a simple question. Why don't we design our streets like we design everything else in our lives, right? Instead of just engineering them with the hammer, right? Design. is a human-to-human process. You know, all of your toothbrushes, your smartphones, this clicker, right? Somewhere in the world, there's a designer or a design team, and all they want is Michael to have an amazing design experience today with this little clicker. Oh, the ergonomics are good, super intuitive to use. Design team somewhere is going, yes, right? That's all they want. It's a human-to-human process. Designer to the end user. Engineering streets there's nothing human about it. We need to design stuff, man. This is kind of a metaphor. We send weird people out to do jobs like designing bicycle infrastructure. I see this all over the world. I see weird stuff, man. You know, and it's an engineer who doesn't ride a bike, doesn't even like bikes, kind of hates them, you know, and will never ride a bike in their city. They're actually given the job to design for people on bikes. You know, and you just end up with weird stuff. So if this is a metaphor, you know, this is the cycling map of Berlin. You know, it doesn't really, it works. The guy's saying, get out there and ride, you crazy kids, right? It's working. But this is really what it looks like, you know. It's broken. It's not a connected network. It's not cohesive or coherent. And there's lots of sharp edges, so you're probably going to bump yourself and, you know, bleed from the knee or something, right? I mean, none of us have these chairs in our homes, you know. We don't have 5 of these around the dining room table. All people want is a chair. That's all people want. We're pretty good at designing chairs. We've been doing it for thousands of years, right? What did you all do when you came in here today? You found a seat and you sat down. You've done it before. You're pretty good at it, right? You didn't have to find your seat and then stop. And sort of circle around the chair to try and, how does this work exactly? It's different from the last chair, and you weren't worried that the chair was going to disappear from under you in the middle of my talk, you know, like bike lanes in Berlin. They just kind of disappear, right? Riding a bike in German cities is like, when you're from Copenhagen, it's like a video game, you know? Okay, what are they going to throw at me now? Round the corner? Oh, my God. Yeah. Except this game, you only get one life. So, we just want a chair. You sat down. It was easy and intuitive. Imagine if walking or riding a bike in a city was as easy and intuitive as that. It's a thing. It was like that for 7,000 years. Back to the future. And cities are doing it today. Good design improves human behavior. It's powerful. All over the world, I hear the same thing. Oh, those damn cyclists, breaking the law, running the red lights. You can't complain about cyclist behavior when you haven't given them best practice bicycle infrastructure in a network. The infrastructure they deserve as, you know, citizens in our cities. You can't complain about it. People react to design, positively or negatively, right? Nobody buys that product because it's crappy design. Everybody buys that one because it's good design. We do this all day long. So you can't complain about it if you haven't designed for them. You go to Copenhagen, this is the world's busiest bicycle street. You know, this is one light cycle in the morning. That's like 2 minutes later, there's the same amount of people. Right? It's amazing. And what are they doing? They're waiting for the light to turn green. That's all, right? They still get there quicker, safer, you know, and design can actually be a game changer in our cities. We need human observation as one of our tools, right? We're so fascinated by tech. We think we can tech our way out of everything, but we got to remember to study people, watch them. How are they using the city? The citizens walking around, riding around our cities, they're the experts. They know more than we'll ever know. So we just have to observe them. And this technique's been used for pedestrians for decades, but I realized that nobody had ever done this for cyclist behavior. Nobody's ever studied cyclist behavior. In 130 years of the bicycle, you know, and I know why. The bicycle was so normal for all of us, like for 70 years up until this, you know, the 1950s, that we didn't think about it. It was our vacuum cleaner. We all had one, and it was just a tool for making our daily lives easier. So we didn't think about it. Nobody studied it. So I stick cameras out of windows since 2012, and I film intersections for 12 hours, 6 in the morning to 6 at night. I get anthropologists in to study these humans using the intersection. This one was the first one I did. Every single person on a bike, 16,631 of them, they're mapped. Exactly their trajectory, their desire lines through the intersection. We want to figure out how they're reacting to the design of these car-centric intersections. We wanted to try and find out new solutions. Can we design better, safer for them? You got to watch the people, man. And when you're the guy who does this and nobody else did it, you find out stuff that is just amazing, and it changes the conversation as soon as you start doing this. We have to do the math. We have to get the data. I live in Copenhagen. It is, in my work as an urban designer, I can tell you it's the city in the world that gathers the most data. It is epic. There's a website from the city. Anybody can go in and see every detail of the city, all right there, open source. We know in Copenhagen that 42% of everybody arriving at work or education every day in the city of Copenhagen from the surrounding cities, we have like the third largest urban sprawl in Europe, and they arrive on bike. If you live in Copenhagen, 63% of us ride bikes. It's not like the cyclists and the young left-wing students doing it. It's everybody. 67% of our politicians at the national parliament ride a bike to work. Fast A to B, makes sense, good for your health, blah, blah, blah. 75% ride all winter. You gather the data, and we've been doing it with bikes in Copenhagen since 1970. Man, it proves a point. It convinces the skeptics. Our right wing in the Copenhagen city, like, they never vote no to bicycle infrastructure because we can just shove data in their face and they're, oh, fine, yes, then. It's a business model. I get it. It makes sense. Return on investment. It helps plan the future, right? You can spend your time talking about stuff, or you can do the data and put it on the table, and everybody has something different, a different focus. Data is gold. Copenhagen knows why Copenhagen does what it does. We know that if you have this best practice infrastructure, minimum 2.3 meters wide on both sides of the street, separated physically from the cars and the pedestrians, everybody has their own space. We know that we can move 5,900 people per hour down that street, through that city. It's pretty universal for cars, about 1,300 people per hour, because it's usually one person in a car, right? And you can imagine, what kind of arrogant amount of space that they take just to drive down the street. Then you have buses and trams on street level, 40, 50,000 a day. Copenhagen did the math. We're pragmatic Scandinavians. We want to know why we do it. We want to know that it makes sense. So, this is why we do it. We move people down a street. The people in Copenhagen riding a bike every day, we contribute 233 million euros to the public health. And, that's a lot of money. And the city of Copenhagen has invested in the past 10 years 286 million euros in upgrading the network, building a whole bunch of new bicycle pedestrian bridges up and down the harbor and the canals. And I am really bad at math. I promise you, I am so bad at math. But I know that that is probably the best business model in the history of transportation. We spend 286, but we get, in the same time, 2.5 billion euros right back because of the health benefits of cycling, a healthier population, living longer, never, less ill while they're alive, stronger on the workforce, right? Never losing time in traffic except for that 10, 15 minutes, We know that this makes sense. Ironically, that number, 286 million, I love irony, that is the same price of 3 kilometers of motorway extension north of Copenhagen. It's the same price. That's the choice that cities can make. Do you want 3 kilometers of motorway, or do you want an entire city made bicycle friendly, and if you do that, you're just going to be making money, from here till forever? That's the choice. We know that every time somebody rides a bike 1 kilometer, we earn 23 cents. Ching, right in the pocket for society. We know that every time somebody drives a car 1 kilometer, we're just paying out 87 cents per kilometer into a big black hole. We never, ever see it again. Worst business model in the history of transportation. Luckily, it's all been invented. There's no theories here. This is 100 years in the making. In 1915 in Copenhagen, lots of cyclists in all of our cities in Europe then, we said we should separate them. They should have their own space. So we're going to physically separate the cars, bikes, and pedestrians, and we're going to try see how that works. That's the photo of them starting it right there. And it worked. If you talk about design, whoever was testing this clicker to make sure it was good for Michael to use today, there's a whole test process. We've been doing this for 104 years with like kabillions and kabillions of cyclists, right? This was copy-pasted everywhere. The Netherlands, England, all over the Nordic countries, and Germany. You had amazing Copenhagen standard bicycle infrastructure in most German cities in the 20s and 30s. Everybody took it out in the 50s and 60s. Car, yay. But it works. This photo's not even Copenhagen. This is Ljubljana in Slovenia. 1970s. Little city, right? But they had 2% on bikes. And they went to Copenhagen, took photos of the infrastructure, went home, put in 40 kilometers of network in that city, and they went to 10% in only 1 year. We're seeing this all over the world. Copy-paste. And I stand on the shoulders of generations of planners. People have figured this stuff out. There's no rocket science here. We don't need people to start thinking about it. We just need people to start doing it. And it's the new normal, man. This is not, I've been working with this for 10 years. I'm working in weird cities, making it happen. These are weird cities, not for being those cities, but Seville, 45 degrees in the summer. Calgary, minus 30 in the winter. Oslo, hills, winter, Mexico City, mega city. They're all just doing it, copy-pasting it, taking back the space. I don't like to say taking away the space, but reallocating the space democratically for people living there. Oslo's the new darling, man. They are so amazing. They've removed 4,000 car parking spots over the past 4 years. City center, free of car traffic now, private cars. 140 kilometers of bike lanes coming in. Legendary. And this is really the game now, right? If your city's not doing this, wherever you happen to live, it's getting awkward. It's getting embarrassing because, everybody's doing it. New normal. That's bikes, man. Pretty cool. Makes sense. Not rocket science, And there is, I know the theme here is system error, right? And we've had a system error for 70 years. It's time to reboot and fix stuff. But the age of urbanism. We're thinking differently about our cities, man, for the first time in 100 years. We've had, 100 years of just accepting that cars are out there and we just sort of don't have any power as citizens, disconnect between politicians and citizens. Something's happening. People are waking up. It's around about 2000, the year 2000. It's amazing what is happening out there. Cities are really the key to battling climate change, and we haven't really realized that yet. There's some things being done. We're kind of getting it, but there's so much potential, and we're not even close to tapping into that potential. If you look at communication, the global narrative of climate change, it's for us in this room. I'm going to assume that we all get it, right? We're all informed, and we know, yeah, man. But listen, the regular people in our societies, we're throwing stuff at them like parts per million. Pollution, parts per million. I don't even know what parts per million is. I don't have an image of parts per million in my head. All of this narrative is kind of super confusing. And polar bears 10,000 kilometers away, right? Ice is melting. Regular citizens walk out in the morning, they're going, the air is the same as it was yesterday. There are no polar bears on my street. What's the big deal, right? We got to communicate this differently. We can do it so much better. If you think about climate change, we spent 25 years, half the time I've been on this planet, trying to convince people that climate change is real. 25 years of communication and arguing and discussion. And in the middle of it, we went from global warming and we said, that's not a good word, let's use climate change. Important to do that. But man, we think about what we could have done in those 25 years. Local urban change is easier. It has an immediate effect. It doesn't feel like it, right? We look at the global perspective, but just planting a little urban farm here, really? Am I going to save the world with that? You know what? If we're enough doing it, yeah, we will. Amazing potential. We live in a headline culture, right? And where all these headlines flying through our social media news feed. We got to be careful sometimes. We have to be rational. This is global emissions since 1970, right? Global emissions. And you can see the bottom there, planes, trains, and ships going up and down, a little bit up at the end there. Nobody is talking about the elephant in the room, especially not the car-producing nations in Europe and the world. I study this narrative, I watch it, and the potential is right there. That is the elephant in the room. That's where we start, because all of these cars and trucks are in our cities, and they're killing us physically or through their pollution and every other way, taking up public space, arrogance of space. We gotta be rational. I always thought that if urbanism was on Tinder, the Age of Urbanism said, I'm going to make a profile. It would be a fun profile. It would be like swipe right, like, super like. Man, urbanism would get laid, easy. Because it's positive. It's like selfies of urbanism with a new urban garden, or here's my new bike, and it's just all fun. It's communities, barbecues. Man, what a cool Tinder profile, right? I really think that urbanism needs to hook up with climate change. Well, the designers who made this suck. Oh, there you go. Wait. It needs to hook up with climate change, because that's like a dark narrative. It's like, oh my God, we're so screwed. And we are, right? Well, I'm not arguing about that, but it's just the narrative. Man, these two, they really got to hook up. They got to get drunk, have amazing sex, wake up in the morning and start a serious relationship, because these are people who need to meet. I see so many amazing things. so many things happening in Germany as well, but it's everywhere. The weirdest places, man, people are doing what they can. I'm with this NGO in Buenos Aires, and they've devised a simple system, taking bottles and cans that are just lying around anyway, and they have a greenhouse kind of system that heats the hot water in the tank at the top of that house. And I am in the poorest part of Buenos Aires. The people living in this home, they have hot water for the first time. Super simple solution. No big banks funding, with their corporate social response. It's just like these people going, we can do this, and we can do it this weekend, and they do it. Desire lines. Urban democracy. I love Montreal, man. It's one of the coolest cities in the world. And there's this rail line that cuts through the city, north of the city, two densely populated neighborhoods. There's been a rail line there for 150 years, and now there are many people living there. So the rail company, the National Rail Company in Canada, they refuse to make crossings. They say, no, people can totally walk around 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers, do the detour. It's not our problem. But the citizens of Montreal, they cut holes in the fences. It's not Europe, so there's not a lot of trains every day, right? It's not like coming into Berlin or whatever. But so they cut holes through the fences, they just carry their bikes or walk across, And the train company, they patch up the holes. And the citizens go, all right, we'll cut one here. There's a Facebook group. Where's the new hole today? Or you get to the hole and you're going, oh, shit, hang on a sec. Oh, it's over here. Right, cool. It's behind this bush. It's so awesome. I stay in this neighborhood all the time. I use it all the time. But these are citizens forcing the conversation, insisting on their right to access and mobility in our cities, forcing the change that we need. I'm in Mexico with these activists. They take away this space here, this asphalt, just kind of this brain fart that nobody really thought about, and they close it off, and they make public space, and they get the citizens out. They engage the citizens who just think like, I have no power, and they're going, oh, you do. We don't actually have to live with that anymore. We can do like a park. What do you want? You want benches? You want trees? Awesome. Engaging the citizens, making them realize that they can participate in making their street and neighborhood better. I was in Riga last week. The city closed off a bridge, and the people went out, and I went out with them, and we just took back that bridge. We occupied it with picnics and a lot of wine and concerts. And these people, these activists in Riga, they're saying, no, we want bike lanes on this bridge, right? We don't want just more cars. And they're taking it back and insisting that the city think differently, because this is the new normal, right? Riga is amazing for activism. They're so creative, and they're nonstop creative. The city keeps saying, we don't have any room for bike lanes. We don't have any room for bike lanes. And the activists are going, oh, yes, we do. Here they are. And they do guerrilla bike lanes all the time, proving that there's more than enough room in the city. Like at some point, the city's got to wake up, right? But they're so creative. This is really visual. This is awesome for social media. It's awesome for the people going down that street. And the citizens will say, yeah, totally. But I read that we didn't have room, but I can see that we do, right? Positive narrative. I'm working in Cape Town, in like the poorest, part of the world that I have ever been, and work in these shanty towns, ignored by the city, They don't exist in the city's mind. And we were going in there with urbanism and using urbanism as a tool, a positive tool, and saying, what do you need here? Okay, you need like water, electricity. God, you need you have these bathrooms that the city plonked down. Oh, you need them redistributed. Yeah, so your women don't get sexually assaulted or raped at night. Okay, that makes sense, right. Working with urbanism, asking them what they need. These are like citizen urbanists. All of us are. All of us know what we need. We all know what a nice city should look like. These guys in Detroit, man, they're so cool. Detroit went bankrupt. They had no money for like many years. They had no money to mow the grass on public parks or on football or baseball fields or really anywhere. Like there are places where grass is this high. You lose children in that grass. And these dudes, they just go around and with their lawnmowers, they meet up and they just mow the grass. It's like the American dream, right? Mowing the lawn and drinking beer. That's what they do. They all have beer and they all have lawnmowers. And they just go out and they just mow. And then they stand there and drink their beer and they watch the neighborhood. They watch the people come out into the fields or crossing it, and the children come out and play. There's like playgrounds in the middle of this and they mow it, and all of a sudden, kids are swinging like 8 seconds later. It's just citizens doing, what they can for each other. That's what cities are, man. Urban gardening, man, it's all over the planet, you know that, but it's still amazing how many places it's happening. Citizens just taking back space in Helsinki, just growing some potatoes, whatever, urban farming, using all this space that we never thought about before, and now we're thinking differently. We changed the question, and we got new answers, right? It's not just Copenhagen, this is everywhere. Seattle has a food forest, citizens going out there growing food and sharing it with the community and each other. Toronto, the University of Toronto, they have a beautifully, North American landscaped university campus, and really nice. But then somebody said, why don't we grow stuff that we can eat in the canteen? It'll still look nice and landscaped, like it's still just plants. Change the question. Copenhagen has a policy, all new buildings have to have a green roof for biodiversity, right? Some cities get it. My friend in the States has this organization, Better Block. They just take an American city block and make it better. Pretty basic name. For a weekend or for a week, they get the citizens out, and they have a block party. It's amazing, and this is happening all over the States now, showing the citizens that it can be different. Because we just kind of accept, I have no power, and then you realize somebody's handing you the power, and then you are just inspired as a citizen. Parking day all over the world, taking back a parking spot, making it into useful urban space, public space. And some cities do it like, physically. Take away 2 parking spots, make public space, benches and plants. You can see there's a broom and a little dustpan there, so if you're going to use it, you can actually clean up after yourself. Montreal has 2,000 of these now. Cargo bike delivery. We did it for decades, and now we're bringing it back. All of the packages we buy on Zalando and Amazon and everything, they're trucks who deliver those. But in 70 cities all over Europe, the last mile delivery is by cargo bike. Totally makes sense. A friend of mine made this in Barcelona, a micro distribution point. All the trucks come in the morning, dump off the packages, and then get the hell out of the city, right? Which is a good thing. And then cargo bikes deliver the packages to the homes. And cargo bikes are awesome. Whoa. We have 40,000 cargo bikes in Copenhagen. More and more in Berlin every time I'm here. It's amazing, man. If you've got stuff to move in a city, if you have kids, this is the SUV for urban living right here, I've done research that shows that, European research that shows that 51% of everything that's moved in a city in Europe can be moved by a bike or a cargo bike. It's never going to be 100%, but there are things out there. In Malmö in Sweden, you can move your entire apartment, beds and sofas and everything on, there's these bikes that come along, huge cargo bikes. It's a thing. It's an amazing time. Cities get it, car-free days in Paris, all over Latin America, right? And just giving the citizens their democratic space back, if only for one day. But once you start this, you got to continue it, right? The citizens are going to want more because we're hungry for change, man. We're tired of 100 years of no influence. This is really our to-do list. Break down the silos. We've had one silo, traffic engineering, and it's time to break it down and get everybody to the table. Anthropologists, sociologists, traffic psychologists, urban planners, urban designers, kids. Just get kids to the table and everything will be absolutely awesome. I work with kids and asking them to redesign streets. They're more intelligent and more intuitive than everybody, every adult on the planet. It's amazing. We need to use design thinking. We need to design our cities like we want beautifully designed things, right? Design and democratic design, which we take very seriously in Scandinavia. We're designing for everybody in the city, not just that one transport form. Democratic design, all ages, all wages. Get out and ride a bike, The more people riding a bike in a city, the safer it becomes. If you don't want to ride a bike, I don't care. It's not about everybody riding bikes everywhere. It's, support people who want that. Get out and lobby your city for better bicycle infrastructure instead of the crap you've been handed in so many German cities, man. There are better solutions. You can join the Extinction Rebellion, You can get out and get angry on the streets and stuff. That's part of the game. That's important, too. You can also just occupy a street, Take away a parking spot with ping pong or something, right? You can plant a garden with your friends, your family, just your neighbors. You can drink beer while you're doing it, which is cool, right? You can do it together. This is really the way that we need to do it now. And it's happening. And I haven't shown you any German examples here because, go find them yourself, or them already yourself, right? Because really this country, if I look at the global narrative, this country is just way ahead of everybody else on climate change and on the general communication of it and everything. It really is an inspiration to see what's happening here. We think that we're all so badass in Scandinavia, but then, we got Germany right there as our neighbor. So it's so inspiring. Get out and do it, man. I was involved. I know the people here in Berlin who did the bicycle referendum, forcing the city, the Senate to consider bicycle infrastructure. It's really you got some of the world's greatest activists here in Berlin and in German cities. We get to do it together. It's that simple. Think global, act local. That slogan has been around for a long time. I remember that from 20 years ago. We're not doing it enough. Man, we're missing opportunities here to use cities. Every change really in the history of people, the history of cities happens in cities first. It's where revolutions start. It's where the change happens first. And then it filters out to the rest of the world, rest of the country. We're not doing enough. And it's one thing to occupy some space, go to a protest, plant an urban garden. Incredibly important. But let's take a step back and realize what we're actually doing. We are building monuments. We're building monuments to the people living in our cities now. We're building monuments to the people who will be living in our cities in 50 years, in 60 years, in 100 and 200 years. We're rebooting, man, after 100 years of system error. We're building beautiful urban monuments. And the best way to do that, all of us in this room, anybody who lives in a city can participate. We're all the designers and architects of these urban monuments. You don't have to ride a bike, but other people will. There's so many different things we can do. We are architects and designers, and the future is up to us, those of us living in cities. So that I often say that if you don't see the bicycle as part of the solution for cities, if you don't see cities as part of the solution for climate change, then you are part of the problem. And it's really a simple choice that all of us face in our cities. You can be a problem, or you can be a monument builder. And you get to drink beer if you do that one, right? The first one, you're alone, sitting in your, on internet complaining about stuff. If you're a monument builder, you're out there with your fellow citizens, and you are making monuments, beautiful monuments. And they're rising all over the world. So let's get in the game. Thank you very much. Hi. I don't know where she went. Any questions? Should we do that? I can do this. Are there any questions? Microphone, sorry.
Sorry.
Have you been by the Berlin Major already?
No, part
because
of my job
I think you should visit him.
Okay. It's kind of like he has to invite me. It's kind of going to be weird if I ring the doorbell of your mayor. I could do that, though, right? No, I have, part of my job is to meet the mayors in all the cities I travel to and stuff. I haven't had the opportunity here. But part of my job is also knowing what's going on and, following the debate here. So, how do you feel about it? You feel like there's change in Berlin for bikes?
I think Berlin has very potential because it's so flat, but I say to my children they shouldn't drive with a bike because it's just too dangerous. It's just too dangerous. People are killed here on the street. I think 20-something already in this year. And it's exactly as you said. It's very. Some parts are very good, and then all of a sudden it's very bad. And it takes. If you read in the newspaper, it shall take 10 more years when they do a plan, and I think nothing happens really, or it's not fast enough at least. Especially in Berlin, where you have all the potential. Yeah, I mean I've been to Copenhagen, to Göteborg 20 years ago, and then at that time they had already better bike lanes. Although it's very hilly and etc. And here you have so much potential, but it's bad, my opinion.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, well, it's not interesting at all, it's really super depressing, is that we know how to do this. It's not like, we're not like New Zealand where, it's like so far away from Berlin. You guys did it. This city was amazing with infrastructure, and we know how to do it, right? We're right there next door, right? And the people who don't design well for bikes, my message here is positive and whatnot, but, standing here now, they have blood on their hands, Like, who's accountable for 20 killed cyclists in Berlin when we know how to do it, right? We know how to fix that and keep them alive and make you feel like you want your kids to ride their bike. You want them to, but make them, get them out there. Blood on their hands, If this was if we had an American society where you can sue everybody for everything, we don't want that. My God, it's stupid, right? But man, there'd be lawsuits. People would be in jail for inadvertently killing regular citizens who are just riding their bike to work, man. Blood on their hands. Questions? I don't usually do this, so I'm really going to be bad at it, okay? But sort of point.
Thank you. Thank you for a very interesting talk. I want to bring up the question of distribution. William Gibson famously said that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And a lot of these urbanism progress and new methods started very rich and gentrified parts of the city and then slowly crawl their way into other parts. And once they reach those poor parts, they gentrify them, right? I think the bike lane might be the first sign of gentrification almost. How do you make sure that the people who live in these neighborhoods that you bring change to stay there and not when the situation gets better, they get priced out of their homes?
I don't see a connection between bicycle infrastructure and gentrification. I know that in America there's a bit of a narrative about it, but then I don't think it makes sense. Like we never gentrified with bicycle infrastructure in Copenhagen. It's just transport. They're poor, or they're rich. We'll give them trains first. No, we've never done that in the history of transport. Bicycle infrastructure is just a part of the transport paradigm. It's, for us. Gentrification is a whole different thing, right? I got colleagues, Jan Gehl, he's a legendary urban planner and architect in Copenhagen, grand old man. I mean, he'll say, when I asked him about gentrification, he's like, oh, so we're not supposed to make neighborhoods better? We're not supposed to, He says, yeah, you need policy in place to keep the rents down. That's political, right? Urbanism. Moving in and improving neighborhoods and making them nicer, in whatever way. That's not a bad thing. That's what we all want. We want everybody to have a nicer neighborhood and whatnot. It doesn't have to be the extreme Brooklyn hipster kind of world. No, that doesn't make, that's not good for everybody, only a few. But policy is the key to gentrification. And Berlin is usually a city that we look to like for inspiration about rent controls and whatnot. And Barcelona is trying to copy a lot of what Berlin's doing. But yeah, bike lanes are not gentrification. Bike lanes are transport for everybody. It's like there's no, black and white, rich or poor or old or young. It's just like, yeah, there you go. Get there quick, right? That's the way to think. So it's two separate things, man. Yeah. Guy in the white and then this guy at the front.
Thank you very much for a very inspiring talk. Isn't the real fact that Germany is addicted to cars? Germany directly employs, I think, 833,000 people directly into the automotive industry. It's a significant part of its interest in the world. I'm just wondering how your thinking can bear to engaging with that economic facts.
I hear the same thing everywhere in the world. The first part, oh, but Michael, here in Australia, people are addicted to their cars. Or here in Russia, I mean, cars are stupid. They mess with your head. Everybody in a car-centric society, because that is what has been designed for them, is addicted to their car, right? Also, like in American cities or whatnot, it's literally the only way to get around because they don't have buses or sidewalks, right? So they screwed up like 70 years ago. But so, yeah, transport psychology. You can't, you got to force that change, right? But being a car nation, yeah, that's a whole different thing, Your politicians, and the, Audi and BMW, when they ring the doorbell, they go, oh my God, sit down, thank you. I mean, this importance placed on cars. That we still use car sales to measure economic growth. That's just so last century, man. You should measure like societal growth. And it's, in better societies by how many fewer cars you're selling, right? That's actually a better indicator for urban life and that you're doing the right thing. So yeah, but then, Japan, right? I hear this a lot. Not dissing you, I'm just saying, we have a car industry here in Germany. Yeah, you know what? The Japanese have been known to make cars. And 15% of the population in Japan ride a bike every day. You guys are 10% or 9 or 10% in Germany. The Japanese have figured it out. They like their neighborhoods, man. You go to Tokyo, but leave Tokyo, go out to the neighborhoods. It's beautiful. You got like 4-year-old kids riding their bike alone to school. That's a Japanese society, right? But they're a car nation. What is it? 20% of all the train passengers in Tokyo every single day. And that's 20 million people on trains. 20% of them ride a bike to the station. You know, that's almost like the population of Berlin riding a bike to a train station. So, I mean, it's doable, right? It's policy, it's realizing that this is last century, and it's cities that make the difference, right? National politicians, they're gonna, you know, pour the coffee for the car industry, like whatever. Cities are the change, right? Now we have the C40, the 40 cities in the world. There's more of them, like the G8, but now we have the C40. Big conference in Copenhagen later this year. That's where change happens, right? Mayors of cities. The mayor of Mexico City has more power than, you know, the prime minister of Denmark, you know. You got 25 million people under it. You know what I mean? Cities are really where the change happens. And that is where, I don't even look at national politics anymore, like about stuff like this. It's just not interesting. You know, it's really in the cities where we're going to force the change. Oh, same, okay. Brothers from another mother, okay.
No, thanks, it already answered.
Another question?
Yes, I have one. So I was actually part of this bicycle referendum here in Berlin, and we pushed hard for it, and we made it hard for it. Now, looking at Copenhagen, look what you achieved there in the last centuries, I would say. Maybe you have a last tip on how to speed things up, because I always say I'm too young to wait. I don't want to wait 30 years till we reach the standard Copenhagen has now. How can we make it faster? How can we make this transformation a bit faster here in the city, and in other cities as well?
I mean, your bicycle referendum here, that went fast. Like, my God, it's inspiring. I don't know, I mean, like a lot of the cities on that list, the cities that are rocking it, you know. I was at a conference with a mayor of Montreal and a mayor in Seville, two cities that just went, you know, crazy. And somebody said, how do you do it so fast? And they, you know, how do you do it? And they just said, you just do it quick. The mayor in Montreal, he's like, you know, he swears all the time, and he's like, oh, you just do it fast and you leave something green behind. You know, I don't want a bike lane. Oh, but we put plants in. Oh, that's nice. You know, like, you know, it's not just bikes, it's like urban improvement. It's a hard question. How do you know? I am the most impatient man in urbanism, you know. I'm like this 12-year-old boy who wants my ice cream now. And so, yeah, I get frustrated. It's possible. I mean, but it's also the political system that you're in and whatnot, right? There's all of these factors. But we know we can do it. We see in a lot of cities, like the neighborhoods, they do it first, right? Okay, we're not even going to wait for the city. God, we're just going to go out and put picnic tables and a playground, and the city comes, you can't do that. Pfft, bitches be doing it, right? What are you going to do now? And the cities adapt to it. I see that in so many cities. People do it, and then the city goes, okay, that's really a good idea. Okay, awesome. So, I mean, it's maybe neighborhood to neighborhood, whatnot. Yeah, there's no answer like how to do it fast. You just do it fast, right? You get, you know, you force the change like you guys did with the bicycle referendum. You keep pushing, right? You're not done. So yeah, it's possible. And it may be frustrating to be you in this city, but I mean, we know that it's possible. That's what is also irritating for me, is that people are doing it, man. You know, Seville, Oslo, all these places, yeah. Sorry, no specific answer there. But one more question? Gender balance.
Thank you. Sometimes I hear the argument of people who ride their bikes that because they're doing so well riding their bikes and not having a car, they can do much more long-distance traveling. How do we make sure that people really comprehensively or think of climate change as a very broad problem and not only riding your bikes and then you've done your part?
I mean, that's a hard question. Good question, though. Like the city of Copenhagen, they'll say that they never communicate cycling. They've never sort of had big, massive campaigns for ride a bike. They just made the infrastructure, and people are going, huh, that's fast. Okay, boom. You know, you just show it, and people will do it. Weird people are seen on bicycles once you build the infrastructure. But we're informed, you know, Northern European citizens. So we know that, you know, why do we ride a bike is one thing, but we know it's good for we know the benefits and all that. And like the German population as well, we kind of get it. We've been hearing it for a while. How do you translate that into the wider image? I don't know. I mean, into the wider perspective. I think, like Denmark, we buy more organic food than any other country in the world. Like 13.5% of all the food we buy is organic. Number 2 is Switzerland and Sweden at 9%. We're not like super environmental hippies in Denmark. We got like, our humor is too dark for that, you know. But the industry, years ago, they started making organic food affordable. Not like in America with the Whole Foods, where it's like, $40 for an avocado, right? They went, no, this is the very pragmatic, Danish. They're going, this is going to be the future. Yeah, people are going to want this organic stuff. Damn, okay. Let's just make it a little bit more expensive. And we got a logo, right? So when I'm in the supermarket, I'm going, okay, I'm, something Pavlov's dog reaction to me. Okay, I better buy the organic, whatnot, right? So that we forced the change. We recycle also, like, in our city, in Denmark, like one of the best countries in the world. Because when I walk out in my backyard to my bike, all of the containers are right there in every backyard in the city. So I know that I can just put the plastic in there or the batteries or the metal and then hop on my bike. I don't have to ride my bike somewhere or borrow a car and take it to some distant recycling center. So it's designed for me. So it's not, I don't know if there's a connection with ride a bike and then you have to also do all this stuff. If you put all these design things, if you build the infrastructure, people will ride. If you build the infrastructure, people will recycle. If you build the infrastructure, in a supermarket, people will buy the food that we want them to buy, right? I think it's really just changing all these different questions to get to what we know needs to happen. I don't know if we've been hearing this environmental stuff for like 50 years, and we're not really doing enough about it because regular citizens, they will change if it makes their life easier. You know what I mean? Like, I could do that. Oh, if I put a little wind spire in my backyard, I have to invest, or solar, okay. And I'm going to save how much money? We need to. It's a whole patchwork of design that make everybody we're never going to get everybody, to go to environmental protests. Like, it's always going to be a little group of our society. So designing our cities better, making me realize that, okay, recycling's good. I never told my kids why we recycle. I just said, this is normal, right? You take the plastic, you're going out to your bike, take the recycling. I just wanted to normalize it. I didn't want to give them the whole spiel. They know about it now. They learn about it in school. We talk about it. Recycling's blah, blah, blah. It's important. But, just normalize things, and then we get the win. Copenhagen doesn't communicate cycling, but they sit back going, oh my God, 233 million a year. Awesome. Like we get the benefits, and that money we can put into other things. So I don't know. The communication thing, I'm still working it out, right? But we just need to redesign our cities, change the questions, and then people will follow suit if it's easy for them, if it's beneficial. Am I done? Is there a host?
Yes.
Okay, welcome to Republica. There you are. Cool.
Well, applause first of all, I would say, right? We